Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the VR Education Holdings PLC investor presentation. Throughout this presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time via the Q&A tab situated in the right-hand corner of your screen. Simply type your question and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company will review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it's appropriate to do so. These will be available via your Investor Meet Company dashboard. I'd also like to remind you that this presentation is being recorded. Before we begin, we'd like to submit the following poll. I would now like to hand you over to Dave Whelan, CEO, and Seamus Larissy, CFO of VR Education Holdings PLC. Good afternoon.
Afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this Get to Know Company presentation. My name is David, and I am joined here by our CFO, Seamus. So we're going to go through this short presentation today. It's going to outline some of the origins of the company, and we'll also be talking about some of the more recent news. I expect some of you have seen the RNS today that we've released Engage in the Chinese market, which is a very, very big deal for the company. So just a bit of an overview of the company. We are an Irish-based company, hence you can hear the really strong Irish accent coming from myself. We're not a very old company at all. We're going about 5 years. We've been on AIM 2.5 years. We've a staff currently of 51, and we are expanding. Very recently, the end of last year, we had 30 staff. And there's two main elements to the business. So on one side, we have our showcase experiences. These are edutainment type of games where these are showcase products. And some of our more famous products would be the Apollo 11 experience, Titanic VR, and Shuttle Commander, which actually we just released recently on the Oculus Quest. These are experiences which are one-off purchases where users would purchase a piece of content for $10 or $20 and they get to keep it for good. But really the much larger part of the company is the Engage platform. And what Engage is, it's a communications platform, but its origins were really in education and corporate training, where it was a virtual reality classroom. So when you put on a VR headset and hand controllers, there's a virtual version of you inside a virtual classroom. And you can do everything you can do in the virtual classroom, you can do in a real classroom. So you can stand up and give a PowerPoint presentation, you can draw on our virtual whiteboards, and you can shake hands with people from across the world, and you can have up to 70 virtual people in the room with you at the same time. And what was quite unique about the platform is that it is also a content creation tool. So when you're inside Engage, it can record everything that you do and say. It can also record all your avatar's movements and any objects that you bring in the environment. So very, very quickly, you could build up a suite of content for your users. However, with COVID-19, we've actually seen a huge demand in our services because many institutions and many corporations are now allowing all their workers to work from home, and they're needing better communication tools, and they're really coming up against it with video-based communications, where the conversation that we're having now is very typical of what would happen in these big corporations, where if you have maybe 20 or 30 people and they're on a video-based call like Microsoft Teams or Zoom, very hard to do any collaboration work, where the person who's presenting has full control of what's happening on screen. You can't interact with anybody else in the room. Whereas within the Engage platform, because we have spatial audio, if you want to lean over to the person next to you and whisper in their ear without disturbing anybody else, you can do that the same as you would in a real meeting room. If somebody is down presenting on the screen in say an exhibit location, you can stand up, walk to a different exhibit and have a chat to a salesperson, and we're getting a lot of events traction. So that's just a brief outline of the company. So the Engage platform, again, its roots were in training, development and education. However, we're seeing very, very big demand now for team collaboration and also conferences and events. So we're just going to play this short trailer. So if you could roll that, guys.
We all experience the world in unique ways. Through our senses, we gather information and build cognitive process to understand concepts. This is how we learn. But what if we could push these boundaries past our physical world? What if you could communicate with anyone in the world, yet feel like you were in the same room? If you could meet and learn
Why would you make me put it up the highest?
from teammates globally, sharing media and ideas, or jump into a simulated training.
But the real test is being able to do the right thing in a stressful situation.
To gain a deeper understanding of the task at hand.
And when you're squeezing the trigger to squeeze the bag,
you have ventilated the baby, and now it's time to reassess.
Please fasten your seatbelt, sir.
Creating real-world scenarios, improving employee knowledge and skills.
Exactly. Plant another tree. And this time we put it up the top.
Imagine if quality education was accessible to all regardless of geographical location.
Large hazard and increase the risk to these big cities.
What if no field trip is too far or impossible? A world of immersive experiences. Engage, communicate, teach, learn.
Okay, so I'm going to pass over to Seamus, our CFO.
So just a quick way of how we commercialize Engage and how we get it into the marketplace. We've three main routes into the market. We have direct sales, which are sales that come through either our company website or through our business developers who are based in America and in Europe. We have our resellers, of which HTC are one within the Greater Chinese region. They have exclusivity. And we also have a number of other resellers across Europe, America, and other areas of Asia. And then finally, we have content and distribution providers who we've partnered with, who will create high quality content and will sell it through the platform where we would enter into a revenue share agreement. So how that translates into revenue is that we have customers who come and take software licenses to use the Engage platform. We have recently, since COVID-19, had a lot of interest in event-specific licenses, where large corporations have come to us to run virtual events, and we have offered tailored services to support them through this. And then we have the revenue share agreements with content and distribution providers, and also end users who want to come and commercialize on the Engage platform, where we'll enter into a revenue share agreement with them. Dave, you just flick on there. You can see on the next slide, you can see that we have, since our commercial launch of Engage at the back end of 2018, we've signed up some high profile clients to work and use the platform. On the training and development side, where Facebook have taken licenses to use the platform. Also SNCF, who operate the French rail network, are using it for training development and for team collaboration. HTC, which is obviously very well known, and their relationship with us is very well known, have used it for event hosting, which Dave will come to later, and also use it for team collaboration. Within the education and learning space, some major players within that space are using it. We've been working with Oxford University for a number of years, and also in the last 9 to 12 months, we've started working with Stanford University, the University of Arizona, and also Colorado State University, some major players in the American market. On the conference and event hosting, which has been something that has presented itself this year, which we hadn't originally envisaged Engage for, we are soon to host a major event for the United Nations, which is coming up this weekend. We've successfully hosted events with Ericsson, Vodafone, European Commission, Yahoo, and HTC over the last few months. And it's testament to the quality of the Engage platform, the nature of the clients that are coming to use it for events, and to use it for the original purpose of training and development and team collaboration. Now I'll just hand back to Dave, who's going to run through some of the more detailed features of the platform.
Thanks, Seamus. So within the Engage platform, I did state on the first slide that you can have up to 70 people in the same room at the same time from all over the world. And each person is represented by an avatar, which is a digital person. That person looks exactly like the real life person, because you can take a selfie of your face, photograph of your face, upload it to Engage, and then our AI system will actually build the avatar based on that image, and it will look very much like you when you're inside the platform. Inside Engage, we have media screens. These are Chromium based, so anything that will run on the Chrome browser will run inside the Engage platform. So you can connect it to OneDrive, Google Docs, SharePoint, any of these cloud-based platforms. With the documents that they have in their repositories, they can be shared on our virtual screens. You can also screencast your screen, just as I'm doing now for this presentation. So any application that you might be running on your PC can run inside Engage as well on the virtual screens, and they can be shared. You can build and share content. So not only is Engage a communications tool, It's also a very, very powerful content tool where if you're giving a class or a presentation or running an event, you can record everything you do and say inside the platform. You can also record all the members who are actually logged into the session at the same time and replay that over again as a spatial recording. And we call that system projected presence. And it's not like watching a recording of a video where it's just a standard you're looking straight at and you never change the angle. You can actually walk in a spatial recording, so you can get up out of your seat, walk around, go to a different seat. If somebody was whispering up the back, you can actually get up during the recording, sit down next to that person, you can hear what they were saying. And the file format that we use is quite unique to the Engage platform. So if we were recording this presentation, and I assume we are recording this presentation on video, if this was an hour-long piece of content, you're looking at about 1 to 2 gigabytes of data to have any type of quality video stream. Inside Engage, an hour-long piece of content is less than 100 megabytes because we're not transmitting video. What we're transmitting is positional data of 3D objects in a virtual space, because all the graphics are rendered on the platform itself, and all we're recording is MP3 data of the voice communications. So it's a very, very small format. So even people that have very low bandwidth internet connections in some of the developing countries, and some places in China as well, would have these limitations. Engage is very, very suited. So what we say to people, if you can run an audio Skype call, you can actually run Engage very, very nicely on your headset, on your internet connection. We also have over 1,200 3D objects. So the great thing about Engage is you don't need any prior programming skills. You don't need any animation skills. It's literally drag and drop. So you have a virtual iPad when you're inside, and if you want to select an object like an aircraft engine, you can drop that in the environment. And you also have a selection of locations within the platform. There's a web app associated with Engage as well. So you can log in. It's very similar to GoToMeeting. You can schedule any meeting that you want or event in our web app. You can also link files in our web app as well. So when you get into VR, you're not looking around for a keyboard. Everything is there in a very useful and easy manner. And we also have our projected presence system. So I did say that 70 people can be in a room at any one time, but some of the events that we're hosting would have many thousands of people. And the way we run those events is you'd have a small set location and you might have 70 avatars in the room with you, but the presenters themselves, the virtual avatars of the presenters, they're duplicated and cloned into multiple rooms at the same time. So in reality, somebody who's giving a presentation to a room of 70 people, they can be cloned 1 million times and they can be presenting to 70 million people at the same time. There's theoretically no limit to the amount of people that can actually attend these events. So we did allude to HTC earlier. So back in March, so the first 3 months of this year were very topsy-turvy for many companies. People didn't really know what was going on with COVID coming. Is this going to be a 2 to 4 week thing, or is it going to be longer? What are we going to do with our staff? And it really hit China hard just before Christmas of last year. Now, HTC each year, they would have a developer conference called the Vive Ecosystem Conference, where they would invite a couple of thousand developers to a physical location, show them all the new technology that HTC are working on, talk about what's coming on their roadmap, and try to get developers really enthusiastic about using HTC products. Now, that conference this year was supposed to be held in China, and obviously that was cancelled. And HTC came to us in February and said, look, our conference has been cancelled. Can you guys help? And it's going to be held in March. So in a 4-week turnaround, we transformed Engage to run events. We put in custom locations, and you actually see one of the locations there just on the video being played. And it was a very, very successful event. So we had over 1,000 people logged in virtual reality concurrently, and we had 1.1 million people watching the live stream. And we had speakers from China Telecom, we had speakers from Qualcomm, we had speakers from NVIDIA. They were all really, really impressed with the platform, and HTC were so impressed. Straight after the conference, they said, look, we want to invest in the company. You have a really good platform. It's a very, very mature platform. How do we get involved? And we started discussions in earnest, and it was a really, really good event, and we were delighted to host HTC. Following on from that event, we've actually had other events. So each time we hold events, it always seems to spur more and more people coming to us. And again, with a lot of these conferences, in America and in Europe, they were all supposed to be held in the summer period, but they were all obviously cancelled. And then a lot of these event organizers have been scrambling, looking for platforms to hold events. A lot of events have gone on video-based platforms like Zoom and Teams. And again, they call it a virtual event, but in reality, it's not a great user experience. The user experience that people get at these events is exactly the same experience that you're getting now, where you're just sitting and listening to a presentation. That's pretty much it. And you might be able to add a few questions on a form and it might get lost. That's pretty much what people call virtual events today, and it's not a great user experience. The reason people go to events, physical events, is for networking and for those hallway conversations where you could go talk to a sales rep, or you might meet somebody in the hallway, you strike up a conversation, and that's where business is done. It's not just watching the keynote talks, and that's really what's lacking. I remember when we went to the BET conference a couple of years ago, very big conference in London, full of educators and educational companies. But really, a lot of the business that we done was actually just talking to people. Inside Engage, we can offer that service. And the way we offer it is with spatial audio. So we have exhibition halls, virtual exhibition halls, where people can go walk around the area, talk to the sales reps, have those hallway conversations. And that's just something that video-based platforms can't provide. And this is one of the core reasons why we're so busy at the moment. And a lot of the events that were supposed to be held in the summer months are now only coming in the final month of this year, because obviously there's some preparation work. Holding a virtual event, we say to people, is like holding a real event. If you need a location, the location needs to be built, needs to be designed. If you want people in there monitoring, like that's an actual real person bringing people around. So it's not like just producing video. There is a lot involved, but we can also charge a lot of money for these events as well. And we are incrementally increasing how much we charge for these events as we do more and more of them, because we're actually seeing more and more demand, and we're trying to see exactly what the market would bear. So another use case is just going back to the education and training aspects of Engage. The United States Air Force are using Engage at the moment for remote distance learning. So in education, especially in America and not so much in the United Kingdom, education is becoming the pursuit of the rich and wealthy. You want to send your kids to university in America, a good university for 4 years, you're looking at about a $250,000 student debt at the end of that education. Really, that's pricing out middle income and lower income families. So what happens quite often is that a lot of parents or a lot of students, they will join the military, the US military, to get a good education. But what happens then is you have people dotted all over the country, all these cadets that will never get to see each other. And they have been using video-based platforms for many, many years. But again, they really do see the struggles where when you have 30 or 40 students all trying to collaborate on a platform, half the students will turn off their camera, the other half will turn off their microphone, they'll all be on their phone, they're not engaged, they're not getting good results. Whereas a platform like Engage offers that real classroom experience where people do make peer structure groups, peer support structure groups. They feel like they're in a real class collaborating. And even the educators themselves, they can get all that nonverbal communication because their movements are being tracked in the headsets. Not only that, actually Engage this year, and I'll talk about it in a little bit, we are now available on mobile phones and tablets. So you're not limited just by having the headset on you. You can actually now try it out on a mobile phone and tablet. And then Seamus did mention them earlier. We are working with Oxford University and Stanford University. And actually, I thought I'd press play on that video. They're using it for medical training. So one of their probably biggest revenue generators of any university would be their medical training program. However, they are finding it very difficult to justify a lot of these costs over video-based platforms and text-based assessments. However, when they're using virtual reality, giving them full simulations, and they're also feeling like they're in a real classroom, again, it really justifies some of those costs. The example shown on the video here is Oxford University, where you have to resuscitate a baby with very limited equipment. And if you don't save the baby within 4 minutes, the baby will die. Quite often, when the office used to be open, any visitors that used to come into the office, I would put them in this simulation because it really stresses them out. But that's exactly what you're trying to get from this type of simulation. It's supposed to give you a real world experience. So we are cross-platform. So we work on the majority of VR headsets, even though HTC now are a 20% stakeholder in the company, will always be platform agnostic. So we work on all the Windows mixed reality headsets. We work on all the headsets from Steam and HTC. And we work on the Facebook headsets as well, and there's a lot of Chinese headsets coming out. Just recently, last week, Facebook announced their new headset, the Quest 2. It's £299. I don't know why they don't say £300. Really, really good device, very strong device. It's going to be one of the best sellers for Christmas. And they've sold so many of those devices so far. We're actually seeing a big uptake in our showcase experiences on that device. Really, we feel we're on the kind of the cliff edge of wider adoption of VR, and there's a few different reasons why we feel that way, and we'll talk about that later on. And again, this is Engage. We do also run on standard desktop displays, and we also run on mobile phones. This is the mobile phone version you can see here on the right. Still a pretty good experience. Kids who maybe have played Fortnite on their phone, they'd pick up the mobile phone version of it very, very easily and be able to move around. The mobile phone version is by far one of the most popular versions for downloads, especially for events, because not everybody has VR headsets. We'll also be out on Apple iOS and iPhones before the end of the year. So I'm going to pass back over to Seamus now.
Thanks, Dave. So just for any of you who didn't hear our interim results presentation, I just want to bring through some quick operational highlights from the first half of the year, and then some quick financial highlights from the same period. So as Dave already mentioned, we held a hugely successful HTC Vive Ecosystem Conference in March 2020, which followed on to a €3 million investment from HTC and a strategic partnership where we entered into a distribution agreement with them, where they have exclusive rights to resell Engage within the Greater China region, and also non-exclusive rights to resell across the world. As part of that deal we entered into, there's a revenue share agreement whereby we take a percentage of each euro or dollar that HTC bring to the table. That percentage wasn't made public as part of the deal, so we can't disclose that today. Over the first 6 months of the year and continuing into the current period, there's been significant increase in demand for Engage as a communications tool and for event hosting. Separately, we entered into partnership agreements with content providers, which I mentioned in an earlier slide. We entered into one with US-based Victory XR, who are a world leader in VR and augmented reality content creation for schools and education. What they do is they offer biology. Some of the things they offer is like a biology lesson, whereby you get to dissect an animal as part of the class, which is obviously a far more humane and easier for a school to obtain rather than having live animals. And we also entered into an MOU agreement with UK-based Virtual College, who are an industry-leading digital learning solutions provider. And we're hoping to provide better technology, enhanced learning solutions to them in the UK and also in the Middle East, where they have a strong presence. If you just jump onto the next slide there, Dave. Thanks. Financially, we've seen significant increase in revenue in the first half of the year. Revenue grew to 681,000, which is up 37% on the prior year. More importantly for the group, Engage revenue accelerated throughout the period, and it currently at the end of H1 comprised 33% of total group revenue, and post period end it has gone beyond the 50% mark, and in some months has actually exceeded all other revenue streams. In line with management expectations, our EBITDA result was unchanged at a loss of 0.9 million. As mentioned already, we entered into the commercial agreement with HTC and had a successful fundraise of €3 million, which significantly underpinned external confidence in the group. Our net cash position at the 30th of June was 3.2 million, and when the interim results were announced was 2.9 million. Engage revenue post-period end up to the end of September comprised 68% of total revenue for that period. I'll just hand back to Dave now, who's going to run through the market opportunity.
Yeah, so COVID-19 really has been a game changer. I know we've been on AIM a couple of years, but we're starting only now to get some traction and become interesting, I think, in many investors' eyes. And it has been because of COVID-19. So if you look at Zoom, anybody who's going to be using Zoom is already on Zoom today. They've had 5 years of user number growth in the space of 5 weeks when COVID locked down most of the world. And I think they're going to have a difficult time in the coming years to really grow the user base there, because everybody's going to use a video-based platform is already doing so. a lot of the people coming to us are large institutions, and we see events as a gateway. So what typically happens with us is that a company will come to us and say, we were supposed to hold this event physically. Can you guys help us out? And then we will work with that company and we'll charge them a fee for doing the events. But then as they're using the Engage platform for the events, and what we're doing is we're actually upselling them then and going, okay, you're using this for an event, but actually it's a very, very useful tool for a communications tool between your employees and your company. And what happens then typically is after an event, they'll sign up maybe a couple of their departments to start using the Engage platform. It could be a couple of hundred user accounts, and they use the platform for typically maybe a couple of months, and then we're trying to sign them up into bigger agreements. That's kind of how our sales cycle is. That's the direct sales cycle. With HTC coming on board and with the agreement that we have in place, literally this morning we announced that Engage is now available in the Greater China region. This is a major milestone for the company, especially a small company in Ireland. For any company to sell into the Chinese market, you have to deal with a registered Chinese company or companies who are already embedded in that market. And although HTC are a Taiwanese company, they have a lot of close ties with the Chinese government and the Chinese market over many years of producing handsets in China and Taiwan. And because they're a telecom company as well, they work very closely with government agencies like China Telecom, as an example. So we expect big things to come over the coming months now that we're available. And I think the great thing about Engage as well is it's a communication bridge between China and the rest of the world. So when we had the HTC event, as an example, half the users were actually based in China and the rest were dotted all over the world. We actually got past the Great Chinese Firewall, and we connect people together naturally without using a VPN. And that's something that is quite unusual, and it's something that my technicians are constantly looking at. But I think we're in a very strong position, and we're in a very happy medium place being in Ireland, because a lot of companies in China, well, all companies in China, they can't use American-made communication software such as BlueJeans from Facebook or Microsoft Teams, and vice versa. There's a lot of companies in America that just won't use Zoom communications because they might have security concerns, whereas we're here sitting in Europe. We are GDPR compliant. There's no hang-ups about using our platform, and we are going for full official security ISO certification at the moment as well, which will be a really nice tick the box approach for our marketing and our sales team going forward. If I go to the next page. So another thing that's really pushing us forward, besides COVID-19, is 5G. So the telecommunications companies that we're dealing with, and we've had conversations at length with these telecommunications companies, is they're really struggling to upsell customers onto 5G accounts. By and large, enterprise and even general public are very happy with their 4G subscriptions. They can stream videos onto their phones. They can check their email. There's no real need to have a 5G gigabit connection on your phone. It doesn't make a huge amount of difference. However, it makes a massive difference if you have a VR or AR headset where you can render the graphics, these very AAA quality graphics on a server at a remote location, and then serve them onto the headset directly instead of processing on the headset itself. And what that enables headset manufacturers to do is make the headset smaller and lighter. It'll make the batteries last longer as well, and it'll give people better, more realistic simulations. And even if you look at video-based 360 video or virtual reality video companies like Melody VR, as an example, they stream 360 video, which is very very high bandwidth. So even a 3-minute video could be 4 or 5 gigabytes, and having that streamed over 4G is just not feasible. You need a really good Wi-Fi connection. However, the telecoms companies really see the benefit of pushing VR and AR headsets, and Deutsche Telekom are coming out with their own branded headset very, very soon. And besides that, you will be walking into telephone shops in the very, very near future. And when you sign up for a 5G account, they'll give you the very nice brand new phone, but they'll also give you a very nice shiny VR, AR headset to consume lots more data. And that's really where we're going to see the massive ramp up in VR. Mark Zuckerberg himself has said that his plan is to have a billion people in VR over the next 3 years. And even if he hits half that target, this is going to be a very, very lucrative business for everybody involved. Now, this graph this page is quite old. So before COVID-19, this is a graph from last year. You can see there was a massive uptake in software sales, and this was the release of standalone VR devices. So I've mentioned the Oculus Quest a couple of times. HTC have their own version, Vive Focus, and then there's a Chinese company called Pico. These are standalone VR devices where you no longer need a desktop PC. So when we released Engage back in December 2018, you would have needed a PC, a powerful PC, and you would have needed a VR headset that was tethered to the computer to have a good experience. That's a really hard sell for anybody, for any business. You know, it's very cumbersome to get in and out of, even if the experience is good. When standalone devices came out, you don't need a PC, very easy setup, very inexpensive as well. You just literally take it out of the bag or take it off your desk and put it on your head, and you're ready to go. A lot of people then started jumping on board on VR. We were getting more and more queries coming in at the tail end of last year. The trend in that graph is actually, it's even extended now with the Quest 2 coming out. Very, very good device. They're going to be like gold dust coming up to Christmas, but we expect to see millions of those devices out in people's hands over the next year to year and a half. So yeah, now we're at the appendices. I'm actually happy to take any questions. I don't know what the format will be.
That's fantastic, David, Seamus. Thank you very much indeed for that. I think probably what the best thing to do, ladies and gentlemen, is ask you to continue to submit your questions. Please do so by using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand side of the screen. Just simply type your question and press send. But just while the company take a few moments before those investor questions come through, I'd like to remind you that the recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your investor dashboard on the Investor Meet Company platform. Lastly, before I hand you back to David and Seamus, I would like to remind you that your feedback is important to the company. Immediately after the presentation is ended, you will be redirected for the opportunity to provide feedback so the company can better understand your views and expectations. David, Seamus, you've had a couple of pre-submitted questions. Perhaps we could just start off with those, if that's okay.
Yeah, fine.
Sure. And I guess this kind of ties into your update and announcement out this morning. The first question we've had is, in a recent trading update, you stated the Engage platform would be launched in China. Please can you provide further update, including when this is happening, obviously today's announcement, the target audience, competitive landscape, and how this may impact revenue? Yeah, so we launched in China at 1 a.m. last night, and it was very successful. HTC ran an event, a global event yesterday, so you'll actually see some news about it on our Twitter feed, and obviously the RNS went out today. Our competitors are Zoom and Microsoft Teams. This is what we're going after. Before COVID hit, I would have said, okay, look, we're educational focused and training focused. No longer, we're a communications platform first and foremost. And we want to be the next generation communications platform. People, I think many people, including myself, like I do very much get video fatigue going after call after call after call. I think there's certainly something in going to a physical location and meeting somebody. I don't think we're going to be doing that anytime soon. And I think the next best thing would be the Engage platform with people with headsets in, getting that interaction. So yeah, hopefully that's answered that question. There was another part of that question as well, I believe. Yeah, there's another question we've got. We understand there's been a surge in demand for the Engage platform. Are you able to be more specific and provide any figures, particularly the number of companies signed up on the enterprise option?
So just in relation to that, we can only discuss what's already out in the public domain. What we can say is there's been a huge spike in the increase in the number of inbound requests and the number of signed up enterprise users. And as Dave and myself mentioned earlier, we've gone for marquee users of on the platform. So the likes of the Facebooks and the American Air Force, Stanford University, people like that. So we've signed up some really high quality users. We haven't put that out in the public domain as yet in terms of the number of enterprise clients we have, or in terms of the total value of those, other than what's in the interim results to the end of June.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed. I know perhaps we haven't had a huge amount of time to look at the questions that have just been submitted as we've gone through the live presentation, but perhaps I could ask you just to start at the top and read out those questions you can from investors. And just to remind investors, all those questions submitted today will be reviewed by the company and answers delivered on the Investing with Company platform.
What I can do while Seamus, while you're reading through those questions, just to give you some time, is maybe I can give you kind of an overview of my vision of what's going to happen with the platform in the future from an educational sense and some of the interesting things that we're going to be integrating into the platform. So within education, and again, it is going back to the educational roots a small bit, we were looking at it in a way that, okay, we want to open up access to great institutions globally. And with students today, with the younger generation, everything is on demand with the younger generation. So when they're watching TV, they don't watch TV. What they do is they watch TikTok or YouTube or Netflix. Straight away, the film is there instantly for them. Even when the younger generation order something online, it needs to be with them within 24 hours, like Amazon as an example. They're a very, very impatient bunch. And I think education is going to go the same way in training, where currently today, when you go to school or you go to college, you normally go to school or college in a location close to you, and the educators that you have access to are the ones that are actually in that school. You don't have access to anybody else. Myself, in my own background, I'm dyslexic. I never went to university or college, and it's not because I'm stupid, far from it, but when I was going to school, I responded better to some educators than others. And it wasn't that I had bad educators, it was just that some of the educators were more visual teachers. Now, I think education is going to go on demand as well, where we'll have specialist universities doing specialist subjects. And I think very soon in the future, what will happen is that you will have students who will tailor their education to their needs. They will do virtual physics in MIT in the morning and virtual English literature in virtual Oxford University in the afternoon. They pick and choose their educators based on their needs. And I think a platform like Engage can really free up educators as well. Instead of as a teacher saying the same thing over and over again in a class and presenting the same thing over and over again, they can pre-record it using our recording system, our projected presence recording system in Engage, and tell the students, okay, do lessons 1, 2, and 3, and it'll give them more time, more free time to do one-on-one with the students that might be struggling or the students that want to excel a bit more. So it opens up a lot of opportunities. And then integrating AI into the system in the future as well is certainly a plan with us, where if you're watching a recorded presentation from one of the world's best lecturers, you can ask that recording a question, and using voice recognition and AI, if the answer is in the database, that avatar can then give back the answer to the student directly. And that's something that we will be actively looking at in the future. But all of these features that we've been developing in the background and working on over the past 4 or 5 years, these are all the exact same tools that a lot of the industries, a lot of the partners that are coming to us now, a lot of the bigger institutions and businesses, they're all looking for these same features, where they want to train up their staff or they want to do kind of HR elements. And our platform lends itself very, very nicely to that. And the event stuff has just really come out of the blue, and it's just, we were as surprised as anybody the amount of demand that we've had for it. So it's been a very, very productive past 6 months, especially.
Thanks, Dave. So just reading down through the questions, there's a little bit of overlap on some of them. So I suppose the first one, Dave, that's come up is one for you. Who are our main competitors, and how do we differentiate from those competitors?
It depends on which industry you're looking at. So like Zoom, it will be our main competitor on events. Zoom, Microsoft Teams, for collaboration, inter-team collaboration in companies as well. They would be our main competitors currently. Then on the education side of things, MOOC platforms such as Coursera and edX, they have a great repository of content. Engage is a content tool perfectly suited to cater to that exact same market. Once we have more and more educators and get to a critical mass on the platform, I believe that side of the business will grow. So it depends on which area. The thing about Engage, and it can be difficult, but it's also rewarding, is that it's such an open platform that can do so many different things. What do you focus on? And as a company, we focus on where are we going to make money. Currently, where we're making money is events, and then corporates using it for communications. That's where the money is right now, and that's what we're chasing after.
Thanks, Dave. The next one's one for myself. So with 3.2 million euros of cash at the end of June and running a cash burn of 200,000 per month, how do you view your cost structure and cash runway? So as things stand, our cash runway is reducing month on month as revenue continues to grow. In the projections that are out in the marketplace at the moment, which are the only ones I can really talk about, we do foresee reaching break even in the middle of 2022. So as things stand, based on what's out in the marketplace, we wouldn't see ourselves running out of money or needing an additional raise prior to that. But obviously, closer to the end of the year, we'll be putting out revised projections, taking on board the impact of COVID-19 and the impact of the HTC launch in China, and we'll advise the market accordingly at that time. So then just on the next question here is, what is the limit for you to grow and scale this opportunity? There really isn't a limit to growing and scaling the platform in terms of the number of users. So enterprise licenses can be issued to any number of users. The platform is very scalable in that regard. For events, it's the same. The events can scale as required. I suppose the only limitation could be if customers come looking for content developed for their events or for their enterprise licenses. There's obviously a human factor required on our side for that, but we're constantly growing the team, and we've got a very experienced team at the moment who are churning out content at a very high pace. There's another question here that's what's happening with the headsets. I think David has covered that off in slide 9, where he outlined that we're headset agnostic. Despite being having the agreement with HTC, we currently run on all the major headsets and will continue to do so into the future.
Eventually the headsets, actually, sorry Seamus, eventually the headsets will be gone. There's already companies out there working on contact lenses to get the same virtual experiences, but that's a little bit off at the moment.
Cheers, Dave. So another one for you, Dave, is just in terms of HTC, what do they see as the opportunity in China, and how big do they feel it could be? They
think that the opportunity could be massive. So HTC are all in on VR. They used to be a manufacturer of mobile phones. They've sold that business to Google. They're 100% into VR and AR. They need to make that a success. Now, they were working on their own platform, similar to Engage, for a couple of years, but they came to us when they wanted to host the events, and they could see how mature and how developed the platform is. So they already have a lot of clients that they built over many, many years. And even in the RNS today, Accenture is one of their partners, and they're going to be rolling out the platform with HTC as well. So I think that puts a lot of weight behind it. They're using all their sales and marketing team and support, which is fantastic, because we are a very, very strong tech company where we may be a little bit light as being the business development and sales support. Having the might of a large company like HTC, even though they aren't as large as they used to be, they still have hundreds of staff there ready and chomping at the bit to resell Engage services.
Thanks, Dave. So one that I can take here is, how hard would it be for another smart team or company to replicate a platform like Engage? So as things stand, there obviously are a number of other platforms being developed and in earlier stages than us in the marketplace, but none that we've seen have the same professional outlook as ours. So Facebook have Facebook Horizons, which is more a social platform. It's very cartoony in nature and doesn't really lend itself to professional communications. HTC had other platforms that they had been developing in the background, but because of the quality that they saw in the Engage platform, they decided to come on board with us. I'm sure there are a number of others looking at this, but we've been developing this since 2015. We're very far ahead of the game. So even if somebody did throw a lot of money at it and with a big team, it would still take them quite a while to get up to the standard that our platform is at. Given the change in emphasis from education to meetings, are you intending on changing the name of the company? So I suppose firstly, no, we're not planning on changing the name of the company. But in terms of the emphasis, we just took advantage of the opportunity that presented itself when COVID-19 came along. And from the success of the HTC event, we showed that our development team was very quickly able to alter what Engage was originally focused for to take advantage of this opportunity and the demand that we're seeing in that area. So we are still focused on education and training, but events and meetings is just another string to the bow.
What I would say, just in relation to that, we're actually more known as the Engage team than VR Education. So quite often, anytime anybody contacts us, they kind of go, "Hey, Engage team." So it's kind of the VR Education part of it is probably just more investor focused, because our ticker is VRE.
So this is another one for you, Dave. What are the main objections you have to handle from potential customers when you're trying to sell them Engage?
It really depends on who we're dealing with. So quite often the first people to reach out to us from a lot of these corporations would be a lot of the real techie people that would have had VR headsets. They get exactly what we're doing. But then when you go up the chain to, say, CFOs and C-level executives, they might never have tried VR before, or they might have tried VR way back when, where they put a phone in a cardboard box and thought that's what the experience, that's all it can give you, and it made them probably sick and ill. So it's kind of to coax people to try it out, meet me inside, and we kind of sell it hard then when they're inside and give them a really, really good visceral experience. There's not a huge kickback with the prices that we're charging, so that's why I think we're actually charging too little. We're always incrementally charging more and more for events. As an example, say, like large corporations, they would have a marketing budget where they'd go to physical events. And let's say we use Microsoft as an example. When they attended the BET conference in 2018, they would have spent about $250,000 on just the physical presence of a large, really nice laid out stand in the BET conference, and then staff it. Now, they would probably attend 15, 20 conferences a year, and they'd have a large budget for that. Every conference is off at the moment. They have no place to spend that budget, yet the budget is still there. We haven't had any kickback really on the pricing that we've been charging, which again, I kind of kick my sales team, because I'm always going to them, well, if they haven't tried to haggle, we're too low, let's go higher for the next one. Let's go higher for the next one. Kind of easy use as well. It can be a little bit tricky for some of the older generation to get into it. So I think people in their 40s or younger, maybe 45 and younger, they have no issue using their mobile phone or tablet to move around. These are people that might have played video games back in the 80s and 90s. I think anybody above the age of 45, and sorry for making a massive generalization there for everybody, they typically want to do things more traditionally, and that's actually very true of the education market in Europe, especially, where a lot of the older generation would actually be in charge of the purse strings at these institutions. But in America, that doesn't happen. All the universities and colleges over there, they're all run like businesses, and they're pretty much run by a lot of younger people, and they're always looking at bottom line, how do we charge more? And they see VR as a way of attracting more and more students to their universities. So it really depends on who you're talking to, what their perceived barriers are. But we haven't really hit any major stumbling blocks yet. And again, I can't emphasize enough that Engage uses such little bandwidth that people with really, really poor internet connections can actually have a perfectly normal meeting inside Engage, where they might be able to do it on a video-based platform like Zoom.
Thanks, Dave. So one that I can cover off here. Do you think the speed of hardware evolution could discourage some interested parties from purchasing headsets? For example, the Oculus Go recently being discontinued. I think we're in a similar cycle at the moment as what we would have seen in the earlier days of maybe the iPhone development, where each iteration is becoming significantly better. But we are going to get to the stage soon where the changes are not as significant. If you look at the Samsung S10 compared to the Samsung S20, there's very little changes. And that once we get to that stage, there shouldn't be any issue with the purchasing of hardware. But I think, as Dave already mentioned, we've covered that off really well by being available on all Android devices, on desktop machines as well. And in the next period, will be available on iOS as well. So even if people are put off from buying the headsets, we offer the Engage platform on a wide variety of other platforms too. So then, other than events, what other applications are you seeing most interest in from our customers? So I suppose in relation to that, team collaboration and meetings is obviously a key thing at the moment, especially in COVID-19 world. And also distance training is proven very, very popular at the moment from customers, whereby you can have your entire workforce in a room getting trained very efficiently and for very cost effectively through Engage, rather than having to be seated with paying somebody to come into a classroom based environment. Obviously, that's not an option at the moment, even if you were willing to spend the money on it. Sorry, I'm just flicking through. There's some overlap, so I just don't want to be rehashing ourselves. So again, I can look after this one. When you are currently setting up an event, what margin are you making, and how much bespoke work is typically required to set up an event for a new client? So in terms of margin, so if I look at an event when I'm looking at the costing and the margin aspects of it, I look at it twofold. So the first is just the standalone license to actually run the event, which is just granting the user, the customer, X number of users that can access the event, and that is basically full margin. There's no cost to us of that. It's just a matter of putting their email addresses into the system and setting them up for an event license. The only costs associated would be when we do bespoke work, but our bespoke work is quite high margin. We haven't officially announced what our margin is publicly, but our margin at the end of June, our gross margin was 70%, but that reflects the showcase experience as well, like Apollo 11 and Titanic selling, where the platforms take 30% of a cut of that. So then the next question is, of your 50 employees, how many are in sales, are supporting partners, resellers, and do you anticipate any change to that headcount over the next 12 to 24 months? Dave, I'll let you have that one if you want.
Yeah, so sales, business development, and support, we've 10 staff dedicated in that area. Everybody else is really techie people. And we are going to be growing that significantly. We're especially finding with some of the events as well, especially with the large corporations, they might want a little bit more hand-holding. So we do expect to expand that. But again, having HTC and their hundreds of employees all looking after that side of the business, we expect that will really take some of the burden off us. But we're very slow to hire sales and marketing people. The best thing that they can sell is themselves. And then, like, the last thing you want is somebody who's sitting there for 6 months and not actually generating any revenue. We're very particular in who we employ, and if they're not generating revenue very, very quickly, we're very quick to get rid of them as well. So it is a slower process in getting those type of people involved in the company. But we are growing, and we have a number of vacancies available at the moment. So if anybody is listening and they know a good salesperson, put them up with.
So just a question on the other aspect of our business. Is there a growing revenue line from the Apollo 11 game? So I suppose in terms of that, we have 3 main showcase experiences available across all the major platforms: PlayStation, Oculus, and Steam. That's Apollo 11, which was launched 4.5 years ago now, Titanic, which was launched 2.5 years ago, and Shuttle Commander, which was launched at the back end of last year and only recently launched on the Oculus Quest store. So we do have a continuing revenue stream from them, and we expect it's publicly in the public domain from our projections to generate $750,000 to $1 million year to year from them. It's not the main focus of the business anymore, but we do foresee having one showcase experience every year, depending on the focus of the company at the time and what we see as the next suitable title for us. So then one of the last questions I have here is, what's the model you use for your pricing? Is it per user, per annum, or hours used? So for license agreements for enterprise clients, it's a per seat, so essentially a per user fee per annum. For events, it's a per user to attend the specific event. And then we charge a daily rate for any content that we create outside of the licensed fee. So just let me scan through. So some of the questions jump up and down depending on who upvotes them.
That's fine. As you're scanning as well, what I would say on the events is we're actually going to be doing quite a big marketing push towards the end of this year. There's a major event happening this weekend. It's the UN event. And part of that event, Pitbull, the rapper, is performing in the event inside Engage. He's got over 100 million followers, and we expect that it's going to get a lot of press for us. and some of the other events that we've held in the past as well, like the X Prize events, some of the other stuff that probably hasn't been announced. It's all going to be wrapped up into a nice little video and a marketing piece, and then we're going to be pushing it aggressively at the end of this year, because we really want to mop up all the major events for next year.
Thanks, Dave. I think we've covered off all of the answers, all the questions that have come up. Apologies if I haven't. We'll be reading through them afterwards, and we can answer any other ones by text after the presentation is finished. But I think we've covered off the main ones. Yeah,
I think that's absolutely fantastic. So thanks, David. Thanks, Seamus, for doing that. I think you have pretty much addressed all those questions for investors. And as you say, the company will review all questions submitted by investors today, and we'll publish those answers on the Investor Meet Company platform. Just before we wrap up, David, perhaps I could just ask you for a few last words before I redirect investors to give you some feedback.
Yeah, I think the saying goes, right place at right time. You know, obviously, like COVID-19, we didn't want to expand because of COVID-19, but we're certainly seeing the opportunity in the current situation and what it presents. Like we're super busy, we're working super hard, and we're very, very cash efficient with how we spend our money as well. We don't just raise money for nothing, and we don't spend money for nothing either. We've been kind of bootstrapping the business, but just to let people know, with the explosive growth that we've had in Engage, there's only 2 staff at the moment who are dedicated on showcase experiences. Every other person in the company is dedicated on Engage. That's where the growth of the company is. That's where we see our future, and that's where we're seeing strong growth right now. So I'd like to thank everybody for attending this presentation, and happy to answer your questions after this video cast.
That's fantastic. David, Seamus, thank you very much for updating investors today. Could I ask investors not to close this session, as you will be automatically redirected for the opportunity to provide your feedback. If you access the meeting from our website, the feedback page will appear just a couple of seconds after the end of the webinar. If you've accessed via the link sent to you via an email, again, it would just be asking you to log in just to submit your feedback. So do please take a moment to do so. On behalf of the VR Education Holdings PLC team, we'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation. That concludes today's event. Thank you very much indeed for attending. Good afternoon.